Leadership and Yoga fam. Today I am bringing you an interview with somebody that I've actually been practicing with in person quite a bit since I moved to Austin about 5 months ago. His name is Rey Cardenas, and he is also the co-founder and co-owner of a wonderful yoga studio in downtown Austin called Practice Yoga. And before we get into the show and you get to hear all about his story, I have a quick ask for you. If you are listening right now, and maybe you're new to the show as well, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could do me a favor and actually take a moment to drop me a rating and to subscribe to my show, no matter what platform you are using to listen to this podcast. Those are the actions that allow me to be able to bring you this interview in the first place. And so if you are willing to do that, I'm sending you a high five, a pat on the back, a big hug, and truly a thank you for supporting in that way. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Leadership and Yoga podcast hosted by me, Shawna Krueger. And on this podcast, I'll be bringing you interviews with exceptional leaders in the yoga world alongside trainings and tips so you can experience true breakthroughs and help others do the same. I like to start my in-person interviews with just a moment to take a deep breath. And if you're listening, you can do that with us as well. So just a deep breath. Rey, welcome to the Leadership and Yoga podcast. It's an honor and a delight to have you here. I have to say that since I'm newer to Austin, you are one of the first yoga teachers that I refer to as one of my quote-unquote teachers, and right. You're the one that I bring my traveling yogi friends to, and you're also someone that I can bring my mom to your class when she's in town. So you're the real deal, and you're also one of the real, I guess, born and raised Austinites, unlike most of us, or unlike myself at least. But it's great to get to know you off of the mat today, and thanks for taking the time to be here.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
So I recently learned that you came to yoga because, you started playing, or you started doing yoga on Wii, right? Or Wii yoga on a video game, right? And then from there it progressed to gym yoga, and then from there finally to the studio yoga. Is that right?
Well, there a little stint with the P90X yoga as well, and I actually injured myself from going from tripod down dog to lunge. I was like stomping really hard and did something to the big toe ball mat. I don't know. It's funny stuff.
Such a different kind of yoga, yeah, compared to the level, right? Especially I consider your class, and the reason why I come to your class, and I've told you this before, and if you know me, if you're one of my students, I'm not as strong in terms of the anatomical cues and things like that, and the knowledge of the body that you have is complex. It's fascinating, and it's really something that I learn, at least something that I take away every time I practice with you. But I learned that, you came into the yoga because you were actually looking for stress relief from playing professional poker. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to hear about that. So take us to this moment where you're just starting to get curious about yoga. You're looking for the stress relief. You're looking to change something. I don't know anything about that story, so take us there.
I always thought that life was a game and growing up, and I don't necessarily think that now, but I always perceived it as a game, and I thought that a lot of the things that people were taking seriously weren't so serious, and I thought that other people didn't know it was a game, and so I thought that a lot of the cultural impositions placed upon me were not valid, and I appreciated that poker was like explicitly a game that you could make a living on. So I thought that it was like more honest than
So this
other
started
things.
when you were a child, or when
this was like, it's funnily enough, after high school, me and my brother, we wanted to be in the UFC. We were like very fitness oriented, and we were training Thai boxing and jiu-jitsu like 2 hours a day, and then going and lifting weights for 90 minutes like 5 days a week. And so it was like, I don't know, crazy early 20s type of behavior, late teens. And yeah, so I was very like also just body conscious. And so I would go to parties with my friends and my girlfriend, and I wouldn't drink. I wouldn't have anything to do. And so I started playing poker with the folks that were there. And I was like, oh, I like this. And then I started playing online and became obsessed with it. I didn't really care or know or care to know like about the kind of negative addictive effects of gambling that we all experience from our like the social media stuff utilizes the same stuff, has the same effect on the brain. But anyway, I was oblivious to that. So I got hooked and enjoyed it and got pretty good.
And did you study it intentionally, or was it just through?
It was intentional. Yeah. At a certain point, I was like, I want to do this, you know, for a living. And I was doing it while going to school, but I was like putzing around from, you know, major to major, didn't know what I wanted to do.
And what did you end up doing?
I ended up dropping out of Texas State
Okay.
because I was majoring at that point in elementary education. And in like 3 months, I made like 5 years salary playing poker.
Yeah.
And so
and
I
you're
was
like, wait a minute.
I was like, I think I'm gonna not do this thing that I've like kind of half-heartedly in, just kind of autopiloting through, and I'm gonna pursue poker. And so I did that for about 6 years, and it was going like really well. You know, 6-figure years in my early to mid 20s, just playing a game.
And was this online or was it in
online?
person?
Yeah,
all on exclusively.
Like 95% online.
So I don't know how it works. Is the poker face important in the online?
Not at all. That's the cool thing. Yeah,
interesting.
So
it's a different game.
Yeah, it's easier to bluff and it's harder to read your opponent. It's just it's a different game, and so then playing live, you have to kind of. I also like wear my emotions on my face. So I don't have a good poker face.
Because that was one of the things that struck me. I was like, I feel like I don't get that sense of, you know, it would take such an ability to like guard all of your emotions and your feelings, and that feels very counter to that which you're doing in the yoga when I observe you.
Yeah, I was a totally different person back then. I did end up become like, you know, you get shaped by what you feed and what you pay attention to. And so I became like very cold, very money oriented, and materialistic and just egotistical, because I was like, I'm slaying it at life. I don't have to go to, you know, look at all these fools, you know. And but it was sort of eating, you know, it had an effect on me that was negative, and I did actually become like a pretty cold person. Like there was like a long period of time in my life where I couldn't cry. Wow. And I didn't really experience.
Did you know it at
emotion.
the time? Did you know that was happening, or you didn't even think about it?
I did know it because poker in a way is like very desensitizing. Like I've lost $20,000 in a single poker hand, and it's like you click a button and it's like, it's gone. Oh well, I'm on to the next thing. You know, so you become like desensitized a lot. And I remember like certain things would happen, like family members or something would pass away, and I would be sad, but I couldn't like physically emote. So it was strange. And
then eventually, does this get to some sort of a rock bottom moment, or when is the realization of like, okay, I need to do something?
Yeah, so there was like several, I would say, the rock bottom, you know, like, so one thing that started to happen was my profitability just started to decrease. And so like basically the field of players' skill level started catching up to my skill level. And also I wasn't treating myself very well. Like I was playing, like just sitting in front of the screen for like 12 to 16 hours a day, and, you know, drinking and just partying, and, you know, so that catches up with you. And so my profitability goes down. I'm like I'm training. I'm like, okay, the game's passing me by. I need to, you know, figure this out. And there was a few poker bloggers who were like doing really well, and they were doing yoga. And so I was like,
Interesting.
and also I wanted to get like some sort of physical practice back, but didn't feel, I was so just out of the routine. I was like, I don't want to go back to the gym and like start hitting it again. I want to kind of ease back in. So it was a lot, there was a physical aspect. I want to get back in shape. I also want to de-stress, but I didn't really have a clue about like the effect of like conscious breathing and just even slow. Like I didn't have an awareness of my breath at all. And so that was one of the most profound things that hit me after just the first yoga class. I was like, wow, I've never like appreciated
Or thought about
my
your breath.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then one time I was walking my dogs, and like I didn't have enough money to pay my mortgage because I had purchased a house, and you know, my wife at the time's pregnant, and like I'm having I'm spiraling in my mind. And because I had taken a few yoga classes, I was like, well, am I okay right now? Like I'm physically fine. I'm like, I'm going to just deepen my breath. And I like pulled myself out of this really crazy spiral, just doing even rhythmic breathing, which to this day is still like, that's my favorite pranayama. Like I don't necessarily need to do anything crazy. I just need to slow my breath down and soften the edges a bit and find a rhythm.
And that was like your ability to put the tool into practice, and then you saw a little bit of the effect in that moment, would you say?
Yeah.
So then take us to when yoga comes out of the background and into the focus.
Okay.
Is this a sudden thing? Is it a gradual development?
This was 14 years ago. And at the time, Black Swan was the only donation-based yoga studio. And I was like, I'm going to go check it out because it's non-committal. I can just drop in for class and I don't have to, commit to a membership or anything like that. It's easy, low barrier to entry. And so I went, and the culture was like very vibrant. And I knew almost immediately, I was like, okay, I'm going to do teacher training here, and I'm going to get hired here because I need to have something to supplement my income that is like going away. And also like at that time at the old Fifth Street location, like 4 classes a week during the evening classes, there were 4 of them, and they were like getting 60 plus people every single all 4 classes, like 5 nights a week. It was crazy. So I was like, man, this is exciting. I want to be a part of this. And I will say that there was like beneath the surface this sort of egoic motivation that wasn't fully conscious, that I only later discovered, because I wasn't really like when I did my training, and like I wasn't really focused on the deeper philosophical aspects or even the foundational philosophical aspects like Ishvara Pranidhana, which is like surrender to something higher. I like glazed over that part. And I was like, this is about me. So I also had like a fall with poker, and I also had like kind of a fall with yoga as well, which is, I don't know if we want to.
Yeah, I would love to hear about that. So do you feel like it was a replacement sort of one, because you mentioned this idea of the game of life, and then you found the game of poker. Did you feel there was like a game of yoga for you at first?
I definitely, felt like it was like a hack. Like I was, again, bypassing, like I never wanted to have a boss. I never wanted to do like a 9 to 5. And so I definitely felt like that yoga was an opportunity for that as well. And there was that gamified aspect to it. Yeah.
When does this all start to change, though, into something that you begin to feel, and you begin to be able to hear words like surrender to something greater than you, and you actually, you don't have to force yourself to believe it?
Now I remember what I was going to say. It was that the yoga was like a karmic, or is like a karmic accelerator amplifier, and it shows you who you are. Well, it makes you more of yourself, and then it shows so that you can see who you are. And
in what ways can you give us an example of that so that it's clear? Because I think I'm understanding what you're saying.
There's aspects of myself that it showed me. So the selfish tendencies that I had, they ended up actually amplifying a bit. And I needed that to happen so that I could see them. So that is then what led me to, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't elevate myself to the highest thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I used to think like my generation, like finally, like we figured it out. We're here and we're going to like turn things around, you know? And so I just was very blind to the validity of collectively accrued human wisdom across thousands of years. And I thought that I knew it all.
Yeah.
And yoga showed me that I didn't.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes it gets worse before it gets better though?
Yeah, no, yes, exactly. And some people, like, if it's in your karma, like I have to learn things the hard way apparently, because, yeah. So, and also one thing that maybe like one of the things I had to learn this the hard way, that, like, don't mix, excessive alcohol consumption with spiritual practice or yoga practice, because it doesn't go well. And actually I know this only after the fact that, well, I was attracted to these teachers that were doing like left-handed tantra, which is like the, hey, if it's all one, then, you know, anything goes, because it's all going to teach you something anyway. And so just be yourself to the fullest and, you know, you'll figure it out. And so that did happen, but for me, it was like a pretty hard path that included like getting like mildly addicted to alcohol. And like, I don't know if you can be mildly addicted, but like, you know, it wasn't like,
no, feeling that, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah. Or just like, like where like a certain time of day would roll around and I'd be like, okay, I'm having my drink, you know? Or so here's what it really looked like was like for a while, what I thought was freedom, my picture of freedom, like one of the aspects of that was like, I'm going to have a drink with lunch whenever I want. And then you get to the point where you do that enough and it's like, I got to have a drink with lunch, you know, because your gut
is no longer freedom.
Biome, it's not. You become like placed in servitude to what you thought was liberating. And so I had to get bound up in that and like really kind of mess my body up too. Like dude, so like you love handstand. I loved handstand. But my whole thing was like, I don't need to warm up. I don't need to do, you know how it goes sometimes. You're just like, I'm
a little guilty of that.
And like for a while it's great. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, my shoulder is feeling a little funky. Yeah. So cautionary tale, but I definitely feel like the mix of just haphazardness around the physical practice and some of the, you know, casual but excessive drinking, like, and also just not having a higher level morality of kind of just having like, my attitude was like almost too open. But I also want to just throw it out there that like a lot of people feel that way, and that is appropriate for like a certain stage of life. You have to like experience things for yourself, and that's what like kind of freedom is.
Yes.
So that you can come to, you know, these understandings on your own terms.
I appreciate you sharing this so much because I don't think it gets spoken about enough. And I think that this concept of freedom and openness is very interesting because there's this big push right now of, you know, being open. I just want to be open to the universe. And we know that not all in nature is even necessarily going to do well to us. There are things that will harm us as well. So the idea of, I want the freedom to be open to everything is interesting because that isn't necessarily the approach that I would want to take with my life. I also similarly had a stage where I felt much more open to everything. Yeah, I deserve it. I have the freedom, right? But I think that there can be a great freedom found inside of actually showing up for yourself, inside of discipline and devotion. And so I wanted to hear from you, what are your guiding principles that you've taken on now? And we'll talk more about the yoga and teaching of the yoga, so we won't leave that story entirely. But yeah, I want to hear how your philosophy has shifted, right? If that's what you believed then, what do you believe now?
Yeah. So now I am really into, so I went on a search for when I had my, crash and burn on all levels, like physically, energetically, mentally, spiritually. I was depleted on all levels. And I had a moment, just a realization of like, oh my gosh, like, because at this point too, I had been steeped into the stories associated with yoga. So like the Shiva stories, and I was like accepting of, the Indian deities. And so, but I was like, so why am I willing to, entertain this reality and the story that I understand from this tradition? I had to take a look back at Christianity, honestly. Like I was like, hey, if I'm in, Western civilization and like, this is like, Christianity is bound up with that. Like I should maybe like, soften to it a little bit and open up and see what's there. And then, so that led me down this like really wonderful path to, Anthroposophy, which is the teachings of Rudolf Steiner. And basically, he articulates a wisdom. It's called the Anthroposophy, literally means the wisdom of the human being. And so he says, if one of my favorite things about his teachings are that he talks about the mysteries of time and the evolving human consciousness, how like we aren't the same as our parents or our grandparents, but also we aren't the same as people in like ancient Egypt or ancient Greece, or human beings were different in a different state of consciousness, and it changes across time, even just across singular generations. So imagine over the span of thousands of years. And then so he says, like, if you want to understand that, then you have to look at the evolution of the various spiritual traditions. There's something about the order in which they come onto the scene that reveals something about the evolution of human consciousness in general. And so there's this like thread of continuity, but there's similarities in all the religions, and there's differences. And you can, in looking at those, you can understand that like human beings at one time were more intuitively spiritual. And this is the time when like the oldest religion that is still, people are still inspired by today, which is the Vedic tradition. When that was happening, people were more intuitively spiritual. They had a deity, they experienced a deity associated with all the different natural phenomena. That's why there's so many gods leading up to a singular godhead. But so they had a spiritual orientation. And then gradually over time, that spiritual orientation densifies and densifies and densifies, and it comes to a more materialistic physical orientation. And that's kind of like where we are now. It's like a default, like for them, the world, the physical world is Maya, or Sanskrit for illusion. And for us, this is real. This is very real. And the spiritual world's illusory to a certain extent. So you say like, well, I'm not going to say that that's right and they're wrong. I'm going to open myself to just the reality that they were perceiving something differently. And I wonder if, since this is like, I can already experience this is real, maybe I can acquire the ability to perceive the spiritual world as real, and then I can see how they interrelate. And so that's kind of been my mission, and just been studying a lot.
It's fascinating. And I know you study a lot because you bring those themes into class as well. And I see you talk about them in the online world. But what at a baseline level do you feel like changes about the way that you live your life based on what you've learned from anthroposophy?
Yeah. So, okay. So we got this head that is, sitting atop this body.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about the wisdom of the body a lot in yoga, and so what's at the top of the structure, the height of the structure is the head.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like this physical body, like we can move it around and do a bunch of things. I could stomp my feet really hard. I could, walking around, do things that are really intense, and it protects my head from being hurt. And so so it's almost like the head is like the king of the structure in a way. I know that's like, you shouldn't say that in yoga. It's like go into the body, learn the wisdom of the body. And yeah, exactly. True. But so like, there's something about the head this day and age that if you have the right concepts, like for example, one concept that changed how I behave and think and all that is that it's not just about freedom. And this is a fundamental tenet of Steiner's teaching and esoteric religion, but it's like human beings, the purpose of our evolution is to harmonize opposites. And the ultimate opposites that we have to harmonize are freedom or individuality and love or unity. And so we don't often think of those two things as opposites, but it's like the ultimate connectedness and the ultimate separateness. And we have to be the ones that hold those together within ourselves. And so that kind of happens in a rhythmic fashion. But so that was like, whoa, that's cool. And then just the idea of holding opposites, like holding the balance between opposites is like...
Yeah, rather than choosing one or making one go away entirely.
Well, and thinking about it like, we don't want it to be too hot.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be too cold. We want it to
right.
be warm. Yeah. We don't want to be too spiritual because then we're spiritual bypassing. We don't want to be too materialistic because then we have this impasse. We can't perceive the meaning behind things. You get scientific materialism, which I think is whack. But we want to be somewhere in the middle. So we want to harmonize the opposites. And so that's the law of three basically is like, I'll just throw like a religious image, but this is all the Trinitarian imagery in all the religions, but like the three crosses, it's like one's the one extreme and the other's the other. And then you've got Christ in the middle as the being that holds the balance. You've got the Hindu Trinity, and even like Ganesh's head, you've got like the long horn and the broken horn, and then you have the trunk that is like this, mobile fluid thing that is like sort of like the in between those two things. It's not it doesn't map on exactly right, but there's a Trinitarian aspect that's worth like meditating on there.
Isn't it interesting how I feel like we struggle though in these gray areas where it's easier for our brain if we can just say, oh yeah, it's black or it's white. It's every day I go and I do this exact same thing, or I no longer do this thing at all. And the difficulty comes in trying to find our happy medium.
And they say that like the best way to do that is through, this is where the head comes in, but like through image and story. And to just try to like to glean something from that. And yeah, it is true that we try to define things. We really want to like define things and put things into a box. And one of the things that Steiner said, who was the founder of Anthroposophy, he was like, don't feel like you need to define things. I don't give definitions. He's like, I describe and depict. And so it's like portray and like leave some room for like something, some potential there that you don't know about. And there's actually a story of, and it involves like Ganesh's creation, but it's Shiva and Parvati's dice game, and Shiva loses the dice game, and he's stuck with the extra piece, and so he separates from Parvati because he can't believe he lost, because he's like the ultimate focused alpha male individuality, and so he leaves and he goes to meditate on like what happened. And the idea is like that extra piece that he's stuck with is like represents an asymmetry that can't be accounted for, like a mystery that so you can't ever really like pin things down. And it even like befuddled Shiva the ultimate consciousness. So
yeah. Oh, I love that.
yeah. So in our mind, like, we don't know how to use our mind. So a lot of people think like thinking's bad, or like, like, hey, stop, you're thinking too much, got to go into your body, which there's something to that for sure. But if we can learn how to use the mind properly, which is, I think, what yoga is actually trying to help us do. If you look at the higher limbs of yoga, you have the varying levels of concentration, which is like, first you have to close the openings of the senses, so that you can, engage with the inner world. Then you have to, like, be able to focus on something, whether, like, you can't just be unconsciously identified with the images rolling through your mind.
Which is where I feel like a vast majority of us leave even higher education, with that sort of level of consciousness.
Yeah,
interestingly.
Exactly. And it's because the culture is like, we've kind of veered off of the path a little bit in this. It's overly materialistic, and so we've developed these image generating devices that just bombard us with sensory imagery, and then we have the residue of that when we close our eyes and even when we go to sleep. And so we don't have time, unless you have like a meditation practice to clear and create the space to concentrate. And so, fifth limb of yoga, you got to be able to concentrate. And maybe it is just noticing that, oh my gosh, I've got all this stuff flurrying around in my mind. And then you've noticed that, and then it starts to dissipate. You find these moments of these in-between moments where you can just focus on stillness or silence. Or you can...
The thoughts start to thin out.
Yeah. And then the silence is like the blank canvas. And then you could... I'm just describing my practice.
This is great. Keep going.
So then you could visualize something, like, because if you know that images have an effect on you, and because stories are just images and sounds woven together, and it has an impact on you. Like, I watched The Lion King and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with whoever, like Simba and Nala, whatever. So
I love The Lion King, by the way. Side note.
Yeah. So then you, out of this understanding that, like, images and stories have an effect on my being. And so what if I were to allow myself, what if I called to mind like a sacred image? It could even be like a rose or a lotus flower or a chakra, anything like that. What if I called that to mind and then came under the influence of that? So that's the seventh limb. Sixth limb, concentration. Seventh limb is meditation. So the concentration is you generate an image and you hold it. And if you're able to hold it, then you can become receptive to it and it works upon you. And then my interpretation of the eighth limb, I know it's like the unitive state with all things or whatever, but my interpretation is like that, the quality, the meaning behind that symbol, you merge with it and it impacts your willing center, your, like, what you do with your body on the physical plane. So then you're like tapping into the spirit, because it's a non-physical reality that you engage with. And it's almost like you're not like generating this thing arbitrarily. You're it's something that people had been inspired by, like maybe like there was like a collective dream about this image or symbol. And then
I think about the moon a lot for that reason, and the focus of just people's attention, wishes and ideas and energy towards seeing the moon. For eons and eons.
Exactly. There are all these clues out in nature, and the moon is like absolutely it's
a perfect one-pointed focus as well.
For sure. And then it's like the new moon, and it gradually fills up into the full moon. So it's like a holy grail. It's like a receptive vessel for the light that you just get to watch fill up over those 28, 29 day cycles. So.
And to take us just one dive deeper into the weeds here, and then I promise we'll get back out of this. But I love this kind of conversation. I was reading about exact clairvoyance, I believe it is, within the Anthroposophy, and I was wondering if that is kind of what you're describing. Is there a relation to that if we get to the level of samadhi, right? This experience of not just seeing a painting, but rather like being able to enter the painting, like imagine the intent of the artist and learning things intuitively from the way that the strokes of the paint were put down. You know, is that related to this idea?
Yes. And one of the things that's worth pointing out is that Steiner said back in the day there was an atavistic clairvoyance, which is like an intuitive, like unconscious, like people didn't ask for it or work for it. They just had it. And so that would like be like revelations in dreams. People would have dreams and they would take them seriously, and then they would act in accordance with those dreams, and like good things would happen. And like that's how like myths came from dreams. And then the myths would guide collective groups of people's behaviors, and then they would develop a civilization out of that myth. Yeah. And so, and then so the idea, like the anthroposophical idea is like, can you like regain that faculty? Like, can you really tap into the reality that stories are real and like imaginations are real? Imagination doesn't mean fake. It just means it's a non-physical reality. And there's some imaginations carry more weight than others. And those would be like the images and stories that have like persisted over, you know, thousands of years rather than just some arbitrary
Because if you
thing.
believe, you have more of a chance of believing it and soaking it in. It's kind of seeped its way into society on a greater scale, right?
And people in prior stages, like they're like, I can't not follow this. This is just acting upon me. And I'm feeling compelled to do this based on the profundity of this dream that I had. And then, so when you get to like, bringing it back to alcohol, when you get to like ancient Greece and like the Dionysian cults and things like that, like what you find during the ancient Greek period is that you start to have the very first personalities come into history, like the historical record, and like people who aren't the rulers of a civilization or like the spiritual leaders, but they're just like everyday citizens, and maybe they're teachers or whatever. So like Socrates and Plato and things like that. So this comes about because alcohol plays this certain role, like inspired by Dionysus, like, you know, you drink alcohol and you start to create a veil between the spiritual world and the physical world. And so it did provide this experience of freedom for people, and still to this day, you know, and then it goes like way deeper, but that's interesting to me. Okay. And then so like water into wine kind of thing, like what is that? You know, it's the clear reflective water that shows the wisdom of the stars, kind of, it's veiling that, and then you drink the wine, and that spiritual quality that was in the stars is experienced within you. And that's where you kind of get the ego, the arrival of the ego, but the ego isn't bad. It's not like the ego that thinks that it's the only ego is bad, or only considers itself as, but the ego creates the opportunity for the experience of freedom and individuality, whereas before there was a tribal consciousness, and people didn't really experience themselves as unique. And that's why in like ancient texts, if you did something bad, like they didn't necessarily kill you, but they banished you from the group into the wilderness. You're no longer
part of one of us.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So with all of that in mind, what do you believe to be true, taking this back up to a little bit of a more tangible level of like something like pursuing our goals, you know, shaping our reality, and looking even at the fact that, you know, you've gone from what you've described in your experience with poker, and you've deep dived into yoga. Now you own or co-founder of Practice Yoga Austin, wonderful space. You should check it out if you're in town or visiting. And you know, you've created that reality that looks from the outside, at least to me, like another world, you know, another reality for yourself. So what do you believe to be true? I mean, is it about seeking our dreams? Is it about visualizing it? Is it about synchronization? Is it about law of attraction? Like, what is it in your mind?
I think that it depends on the stage of life that you're in. But like for me, like with opening practice, I was just being myself and letting the yoga kind of amplify that. And the thing about these like teachers that I followed that kind of sent me down this dark path was like, they had a very strong practice and made my practice very strong. And I would not have had the confidence to open the yoga studio if that, you know, if I didn't have that strength. And so, but also at the same time, I always tell people that I never like set out to open a yoga studio. It literally happened to me. And so I think there's some like destiny and karma at play. And if you just have the willingness to show up and to try, I think it comes out of a desire to like know yourself more fully, especially around like the era of your 20s and early 30s. One part of anthroposophy is like we have these like 7-year periods where the first 7-year period that is devoted to your consciousness. You're unconscious because your consciousness is developing your physical body. And then in the second year,
that gives me chills.
And then from 7 to 14, you're developing your etheric body, which is the site of like what the chakras come out of, and it's like your deep rooted tendencies. It's like your karma from your previous lives is getting embedded into the physical framework. And then your astral body, which is sort of like, you know, just your likes and dislikes. It's not as deeply rooted as like the being of your etheric body, but it's sort of like your personality. Then that comes in around puberty, you know, 14 to 21. And then your sense of individuality starts to reckon with your astral body. And that's 21 to 28. That's called the sentient soul. Then there's the rational soul, where your mind starts to reflect on your emotional reactivity to certain situations. And then from, I believe it's 28 to 35, then you're in 35 to 42, you're in the consciousness soul period, where you're ideally, you start to connect with spirit at that point, where it's like you become aware of like what thinking is.
Yeah.
Because in conscious thought, like the only place where we're really free, this is what you realize is like what you thought was freeing, like that drinking alcohol, you know, having the drink at lunch, which I thought was freedom, was really just like some, you know, based on some unconsciously generated perspective that I had that I wasn't aware of. And so then you become aware of in the consciousness soul stage that the only place that you're free is in your conscious thinking.
Yeah.
And so in conscious thought, you're free. And so you want to make some space in your life to where you can have conscious thoughts, which are right. Like you got to still the mind, consciously generate some stuff and go from there. And that's when you can really take the reins on your life. Like right now, like opening practice, we've been in business for 12 years. It's been like a crazy roller coaster ride, really fun. It's been, I've had a really fun life. And, but also really hard. a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But you like, I'm really like just now starting to feel, you know, free and feeling like I can actualize and do what I want to do from a place of conscious choice. And I'm 42. So like, you know, it takes time, but I would just say like, you know, just be yourself. And
I'm hearing this on one end, a bit of belief in the fate or the destiny or higher calling or karma. And at the same time that we do have the ability to move towards that or away from it. Is that what you're saying? Is that aligned?
Yeah. And I think a good way to look at it is like you, there's like a collective karma that we're a part of. And then you have your karma from your past lives that you're reconciling with your current life. And then you hopefully are finding your free will in this life. And you're, you know, I don't want to say making new karma, because one thing about karma is like it's unconsciously generated, you know, and so wisdom is like kind of in a way an opposite in opposition to karma, and hopefully you're cultivating wisdom.
Yeah.
And maybe the goal is to stop trying to generate karma, but but that takes like many lifetimes apparently. I don't know. And so yeah, I think that trust and patience and showing up and all the things like this I think the self-help stuff and managing your, mental health and physical health, I think that's all like very important, especially in these stages where people are abiding in personality and trying to take the reins on the circumstances of their life, which like in your 20s and 30s, like you have like a lot of energy, hopefully. Although we do have these like, electromagnetically oriented devices that drain our energy, but and our willpower, which, and I'm not saying like I've been going on these like anti-tech rants, but not like saying, hey, don't use.
But also
the
yoga
tech.
was brought to you via
Yeah,
the
true.
Wii.
No, exactly. And it's just like the message really is like bring your consciousness to the engagement.
Yeah.
But because a lot of us, we fall asleep, not, like physically, but just in our mind when we're in what Steiner would call sub-nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I sometimes think that, of course, our brains have started to look like our social media feeds, but also it feels like we kind of created what is already going on in here in terms of the speed of things, and we've just put it into the physical form. Mm-hmm. So, it's not all at fault. I agree with you. So I want to talk about relationship, right? So you and your wife are both into yoga, very much teaching yoga.
She teaches sacred dance, but she is certified to teach.
Yeah. But like that's like what do you guys both talk about that a lot, or?
We talk about spirituality.
Yeah,
a lot.
I can
and
imagine.
So you could say yoga.
Would you say that you both bring different things to the table, or is it what's the experience? And I'm actually asking out of curiosity because my husband is not at all a yogi. He will meditate and he'll do yin with me, but he is not also into yoga. Like he's never taken one of my yoga classes. It's our fun fact.
No, yeah, I can understand. Yeah, I get it. So me and my wife's closest area of bonding that we attend a place called the Church of Conscious Harmony. It's a very it's a contemplative Christian community here in Austin. My parents took me there when I was a kid, and it was part of my like journey was realizing like I need to go back there, and that was when I was like I need to consider this. I need to consider Christianity closer. I know exactly where I can go. I can go back to CCH. And so when I was going there, I was in a very low place, and I was like, oh, it was feeding. It was like healing me.
Yeah.
It's a magical spot. And I was like, man, I wish that I could find someone who loved this place as much as I did. And then I met someone who was teaching at the studio was staying with me for a little while, and she was friends with Whitney, and she brought Whit to a class at the studio that I just was taking the class as well as a student. And then after class, Whitney left and Stacy was still there, and I was like, who's your mysterious and beautiful friend? And she's like, oh, that's Whitney, but sorry, she's got a boyfriend, sorry. Not gonna happen. And I was like, it's too late. I was like, we're already in love. Like, it's too late. It's already happened. And so we ended up going out as like a group a week or so later, and we were, just chatting about various things, and like like tarot came up. And there's a book called Meditations on the Tarot, and it's and the subheader to that is a journey into Christian Hermeticism. So you wouldn't necessarily associate tarot with
that,
yeah. And so I didn't say anything about that book, but we were talking about tarot, and then like a week later, she was like, "Oh, I've got a book for you," and she brought me that book, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I bought this book like a week ago from the CCH bookstore. Have you been there?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, I went to this church like a year ago." And I was like, "Yeah, and then so we bonded over that. And so we're like super connected on that level. And,
I love that.
but on all levels, like she did the teacher training at Practice and comes to class and she's awesome. She's a dance teacher. And
fellow nerd out about yogic philosophy and things, it sounds like.
Yep,
and
exactly.
And beyond.
Very open, yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, when you are teaching, what is your philosophy? You know, what do you try to bring to class? How do you hope people feel, essentially?
When I'm teaching, I am trying to help people sense their body. Like that's one part of it. I want people to be able to sense their body, sense their legs. A lot of people aren't in their body. Yeah. And so that's like a jumping off point for me. And then I also want people to feel like the warmth of my attention and also the collective presence of each other.
Yeah.
And just the warmth of human attention in general. And I will say that like a big motivator for me is to like provide a class that people want to come to each week to get a break from the digital realm. Yeah. Because I know that like if people don't have things that they want to do in real life, that, and not that they like, not things that I need to eat or I need to just like, I want to come be with a group of people.
Yeah.
I want to get into my body and I want to understand how to, this is my other mission for people, is to help them understand how their mind relates to their body.
Yeah.
That's it.
And how would you say that your teaching has evolved? I mean, what really changes? And because we have a ton of actual either yoga teacher hopefuls or current yoga teachers on this podcast. And I always love to ask, like, what's really changed for you after several years of teaching?
Well, in the beginning, I felt like I was very attached to like, okay, this is what I have to do to get people in class. Yeah. This is what people want from a yoga class. So I'm going to do that. And I'm also going to like, you know, get my physical practice up really good so that I can be an ideal that people look up to. And now I don't do that so much. And I feel lucky to, but you can't just go completely off the rails. You gotta, you know, meet people in the middle. So I've put less pressure on myself to, do what everyone else is doing, what I think is popular. And, you know, and then when the class size dwindles, then I know that I've like deviated from that a little too much and I'll bring it back a little bit.
Like time to rein it in.
Yeah, I'll rein in my, like I'm getting a little too self-indulgent with what I'm into. I need to like meet people where they're at. And so,
which is important, right? Because I think there's this big narrative now where it's like, well, think about your art and your true expression, but you're also like, well, but let me think about the experience of the student.
Exactly.
And let's also make that really a primary focus of what we do.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at that.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, what I like is real important to me. Like, you know, I know what I'm into.
Well, it's easier to share that because it comes from a place of excitement, you know, and I think part of the trick is getting other people excited about what has been impactful for us. I heard this quote somewhere that it's basically the duty of the artist to make the message irresistible. Yeah.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna be my next question is what challenges you the most about teaching? I
definitely feel so I need to remember when I'm teaching that really it's about how my state of being in the moment is really important.
Yes.
And I can oftentimes in the moment, like even right now when I'm talking about these things or a few minutes ago, it's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to weird people out. This is going to, you know, you get the little
you get the
narrative
mental
about, and I'm like, maybe I should I have said that? So I have that. That's what I have to work on. But I shared some quote recently, and maybe it was just in the teacher trainee discords, but it was like, you know, students respond to the warmth of attention that comes from experience and like caring about a subject. And so if I can just bring that, you know, it'll be all right.
I love that.
Yeah.
A couple of quick ones here before we get to our wrap-up questions, but what is your vision for teaching yoga? Your vision for yoga in general, it can be broader.
Yeah. My vision is that I feel like people find yoga through the physical practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens a door, though. That opens a door because then what they feel from that is they feel their subtle body, they feel their energy change, and they become, because the physical practice amplifies your etheric body, and that's what you want to be able to perceive, and the contents of your astral body gets in the way of that. And so I want to create programs and curriculum and things like that help people, that give people a place to go, that have found the physical practice, and that because invariably you reach a point where you're like, okay, my body isn't, you're not going to constantly progress on the physical level. At a certain age, you're going to start losing poses. And it's like, and then, so then what does the practice look like? Like one of the things I'm most grateful for, like a lot of my injuries that like have, hindered my practice and changed my focus from, oh my gosh, I got to get this pose better and better and better, to like, what do I do when I can't, like, if I can't do this, why am I so identified with my physical form? Mm-hmm. And it prompted me to look at the other bodies. We've got the koshas in yoga, and so it isn't just the anamaya. We got those other 4. So I want to just create programming that helps, or just give people the opportunity to learn these meditative, philosophical teachings that help them understand themselves better.
So good. Mm. What would you say is a moment of pure joy that you've had recently?
Moment of pure joy, holding my newborn son. He is just so sweet, smiley guy. And then like he just locks in the eye contact. And there was a full moon recently, or it was something like the last full moon, and I took him out there, and I was holding him, and we were looking up at the moon, and then I looked at him, and he was just locked onto me, and I like felt something from him, and I was just like, we just had like a moment, a good few minutes of eye contact, and it literally felt like he was like my dad.
Yeah.
And he was like, I got you, I've got you, man, I'm taking care of you. And I was like, oh dude, thank you.
Message conveyed. That's sweet. Yeah. That's really, really sweet. In your opinion, what makes an exceptional leader? What are characteristics of an exceptional leader?
I think that a leader, like, one of the things that I'm good at with leadership is giving others autonomy in a situation, because, out of that spirit, like I never wanted to have a boss.
Yes. So
I never, like running practice, I didn't want to be this like iron-fisted boss type. So that has worked really well for me, because yoga teachers are kind of oriented towards freedom and like doing things on their own terms. So one of the reasons why people like practice so much is because we let the teachers just do their thing. And that's kind of like against the traditional wisdom of like, you need to have this standardized offering, like McDonald's, you're going to get the same thing. But that's why we really like, we only have one studio, and we're not like opening up a bunch of spots, because we don't really standardize the offering that much. So
got it.
Letting people have freedom. And what else? Yeah, getting help when you need to.
Yes, asking for help, asking the right questions. It's huge. Okay, well, we've made it to the final wrap-up question that has been a tradition since the very beginning, now over 100 episodes, and it's the Billboard message. So the idea is that if you had a billboard that was going to be seen by everybody in the world, what would be the message or the image or whatever you want to put on that billboard? It could be like a one-liner, it could be one word, a phrase you live by, whatever you want.
I would have like some image maybe of, two people looking at each other, being wholly present with each other, and it just said, the warmth of attention.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I can see it. A little bit of design work to make it really pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The warmth of attention. People don't, attention, that's just, you could have like I'm just focusing on something, but there's a warmth there because you're a warmth being, and what you focus on, you give your warmth to.
Yeah.
So
that's really awesome. Thank you, Ray. This has been a really, really lovely chat, and I've enjoyed this deep dive that we took also into philosophy and all things of that nature. Let people know where they can find you and practice with you. And I know that you are currently in a teacher training, but if you have more of those coming up, all of that stuff as well.
For sure. So I teach at Practice Yoga Austin on Wednesdays at noon. That's my one and only class. You got to make space for the others.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to have you. If you're ever in Austin, it's a donation-based studio, and it's, really easy we got mats and all that. It's low barrier to entry. And then teacher trainings, I'm a part of a Tuesday night track that is starting in June.
Oh, awesome.
That's going to be really great. And it's, 6 months, Tuesday nights from 6 to 10 at the beautiful yoga church. If you've never seen it, it's an old church, and it's really...
It's magical.
Yeah.
I was just there, yeah.
Really nice space. And then there's a fall vinyasa track that I teach with Marnie, 200 hour. And this training, which I can't remember when it starts, but that's good enough for now.
Perfect.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'll link all of that in the show notes as well. Other than that, what's your favorite emoji?
I think I'm going with prayer hands because
hands.
it's just so
It's
useful.
the classic, yeah. So drop the prayer hands emoji in the comment section on Spotify, and we'll catch you in the next episode. And I'll see you at your Wednesday class.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks for having me, Shawna.
You're welcome. If you enjoyed this episode of the Leadership in Yoga podcast, please take a moment to drop me a rating and subscribe. Also, if you're able to share this podcast with the world, it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.